So I'm here with three of our athletes and coaches and administrators in the athletic program. Thank you for being here. This is our second round of conversations about athletics. Steve, you and Sarah Larson and I had an earlier conversation, and there's just so much to talk about with athletics, and people care deeply about athletics. So this is worth, I think, a deeper dive. And would you guys introduce yourselves first and your role here at Trinity? Sophie, would you start?
I'm Sophie Smith. I'm the middle school athletic director.
I'm Steve Efird. I'm Trinity's athletic director.
Chris Sparks. I'm the director of advancement and boys varsity basketball coach.
Great. So one of the issues I want to hit head on, and maybe we could just start with this. Steve, you
Sure.
could maybe launch us in. Winning, competition on the one side, and then participation. Those are two things that we value here at Trinity. Can you say a little bit about how we, in our expanded mission statement and in the ways in which we've crafted a mission for Trinity, how do we balance those out? How do we look at them?
Sure. And first of all, just recognize that that's difficult and that it can be a tension at times. So first of all, I just want to recognize that. And balancing those things is not always easy and presents challenges at the middle school level, at the JV and varsity levels, and we try to balance those as best we can. I think what we try to do is to offer a progressively competitive program, and we want as many students involved as we can have, but also protect the integrity of competitiveness and excellence and how we compete. And by progressively competitive, I think I mean we allow more participation at the middle school level, and we also want students to try new things and try new sports and give them those opportunities. And we offer one sport per season that does not have cuts. And as students work their way through to JV and varsity, it's going to be more competitive naturally. So there may be a chance that you do get cut from a team, or you play on a different team that your friends are not on because they're taking a track that's more competitive down that road. But we also, in the midst of participating at a high level, we also want to compete at a high level too. And just because we have a lot of students on a team or encourage a lot of folks to come out, that does not mean we want to win. I think we absolutely have winning as a goal. It's not going to be our number one goal. And I think anytime, in any situation where you have winning as the only goal or the primary focus, everything else gets a little bit distorted. So we certainly want to win. We want to excel at a high level, but we want to make sure we're doing that in the right way.
Yeah, that's great. I think, could we say a little bit more, and I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in. I think when we say that winning may not be our top goal, there probably are people in the Trinity community that might choke on that just a little bit, because that's, for athletics in general, that is, if we're watching football on Sunday afternoon, right, that's what that top goal is, to win for that team. Why do we think about that somewhat differently? And I don't know, Chris, what are your thoughts about winning? And
Sure. I think for me, I really don't like losing.
Yeah.
I want to compete, and but I want to compete well, and I want to win well, and I want to lose well if there's a way to do that. And there's times when you're going to face an opponent that has a little bit more talent than you, a little bit more skill, and you may not win in the natural sense, but we lose the game, but we ultimately win, I think, and especially the teams that I've been a part of, because there's so much that comes with that losing that helps us then later win.
Yeah.
And I think with the failure and the just understanding that to get to the winning part, it's a long road, and it comes with failure, it comes with hard work, it comes with dedication. And I think if we just go out in the beginning and just say winning is our number one goal, and I'm thinking that's what Steve's speaking to, is we're missing the point.
Yeah.
And there's so much more that goes into it, and that as we build up as a team and as we grow and as we get better as a team, I think a byproduct of that will be success and excellence, but it's going to look different for each team and each program and each athlete.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any.
I think every middle school student athlete has the desire to win.
Yep.
But I think the coach's main priority as a middle school level is to give them an experience that they can explore their giftings and the opportunity that Trinity presents in the middle school through various sports. But they want their character and sportsmanship and their God-given gifts to be developed as a whole, not just sacrificed on the altar of winning. And I think many middle school coaches would say to you, if we're doing things the right way, the missional way, then the winning will come.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think, if I can speak to one thing, I thought just a great example of that, and this doesn't happen every time, but a few years ago, we were fortunate enough to win the Conference Sportsmanship Award. And then 2 weeks after that, we also advanced to the state championship in men's tennis, which was an amazing example, I thought, of our students, our coaches, doing things the right way, competing well, honoring God, honoring their families, but also winning at a high level. And when we can do that, that's the perfect. It doesn't always result in that, but that's a shining example, I think, of what we can accomplish.
Yeah, that's great.
And I was just going to mention really quickly, it just is so fresh in my mind, that losing to St. David's was a really important game for us to learn, losing to Durham
With the
Academy.
varsity basketball.
With the varsity basketball team. And I think where we are now as a program and a team compared to where we were 2 weeks ago before that loss is just amazing, the growth. And we would have never gotten to this point where we are now as a program and a team if we hadn't taken that defeat, quite honestly. And there's just a ton of growth that comes out of that. So for me, if I just say, it didn't feel good to lose, but it feels really good now to see how the student athletes have grown from that.
Yeah. I think about winning, as you guys are talking about it, a couple of thoughts. One is that I want us to hire athletic directors and coaches that want to win. We want a fire in the belly that's going to go out there and compete, and fiercely. And that's part of what we're doing in athletics. And if that's not there, then we're not going to accomplish the greater goals of athletics. And yet it is, as you were saying, Sophie, if winning becomes this idol, if winning itself is the thing that we pursue at all costs, then we'll miss the best things that can happen in athletics. And I think we all have, probably some of our most impactful memories of athletics are things where it didn't go well, where I learned a lesson when I lost, or when I disappointed myself or didn't meet my own goal. And that's just so important for kids. Yeah. So, yeah.
And that's where I love, at the middle school level, the blue-gold model.
Yeah.
Where it gets progressively, as Steve said, progressively competitive. And where we need to, we try our best to maybe have a team that's comprised of developmental players that are given the opportunity to try and come along to test their gifting. But when that's working well in tandem, in partnership with parents, you can see that growth getting them ready for the varsity stage, which is really exciting.
Yeah. Can you explain a little bit about the blue, gold, and some of the folks that are watching are maybe lower school parents and they haven't come up through the athletic program yet?
Yeah, so for volleyball and basketball specifically, we have a blue team, which is, we'll try out, we'll have a week or 10 days of tryouts at the beginning of the season. And then with all the coaches and the varsity coaches present, we'll have a discussion about where the best fit is for that student athlete. If they're more skilled and more developed as a player and emotionally ready for the gold level, they'll be on the gold team. Those are the best players. Blue is the lower level, but equally competitive. There's been some huge growth, I think, through that program. And then if we have more student athletes than we can fit on those two teams, in the last couple of years, we've got either the Navy boys for basketball, or in volleyball, we've had a developmental team, a small team, but they've had expert coaching almost one-on-one to try and get those skills up to a level that then they can move up through the program. And with input from a lot of varsity coaches, there are guidelines now for what each level should look like and what skills they should be developing as they go on through the program.
Yeah,
So
that's great. And as we talked about last time, we have sports at each season that are non-cut sports, so that even all the way up through the upper school. So cross country in the fall.
That's right, cross country in the fall, swimming in the winter, and then track and field in the spring.
Yeah. And those are fabulous opportunities. I was just at a swim meet yesterday and saw, just some amazing swimmers who were incredibly competitive at the state level, but also some students who are trying this out for the first time, even as upper schoolers, and being part of that team and learning so much. I so value what Coach Ray and the others are doing with that. Yeah.
And they had a great meet yesterday. Both the boys and girls won yesterday. Their
Yep.
meet with a lot of conference teams, and something that's been a unique byproduct of the no cut. Some students in the past have been cut from a particular team. They've gone out and tried something new, and they've really, really excelled at that and become an all-conference member and all-state member. And so that's been a really neat thing to see. Through a roundabout way, they found their passion.
And one alum went on to swim in college.
That's right.
After trying a sport and being cut from it and then trying swimming and doing exceptionally well. So we've got amazing students who are very athletic. It's just finding their gifting and their right place for them.
Yeah. And maybe we could talk a little bit about that. We've had students that have gone on to play in college. That's not going to be the experience of most Trinity students. But there are students that are playing. Who are some of the sports that we've sent students up to?
Sure, we've sent
college?
students who played collegiately in golf,
Yep.
in volleyball, in basketball,
Yeah.
and I know we have some that are here now that are striving
We
for
got a
achieve
picture
Baseball.
at Swanee,
Baseball,
and
that's
yeah,
right,
yeah. So, and Chris, can you talk a little bit about the varsity experience? What's that like? It's more intense, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and as I get older now, I'm having more experiences, right? So this is my second high school experience, and a lot of growth in my first situation, and then coming here, it's been really, really interesting, and it's been really life-giving for me to be a part of this process here at this school and the way we do it. We really try to work through the mess, and we really, it's a process, and that's what I hear from all of us right now, is just talking about the process. And I think as we work through the process, even at the varsity level, there's some student athletes on my team that just want a great varsity high school experience. They may not play as much as some of the other students, but they just want to be a part of a team, and they want to, they're going to work hard during that season, and they're going to dedicate, and they want to be part of something. And then we have some other student athletes on our team that have aspirations, as you mentioned, to play college athletics. But again, not making that just their sole focus here, which I love. It's many different things. It's about being a great community leader. It's about doing well in the classroom. It's about being involved in other avenues and opportunities of the school. And we do that. It's not perfect, but I think we do a really good job of that. And I'm really excited to be a part of it. It's cool to see how, we can have Davidson College here or some other schools coming to see our student athletes, but then also knowing that we have some seniors on the team that will just go and play intramurals at when they go to university next year. So yeah, it's great.
Good. Let's talk a little bit about parents. So the parents do so much for us at Trinity in the athletic program. Maybe we could say a little bit. I mean, what are some of the ways that parents support the athletic program?
Particularly in middle school, they help out with the clock and book for basketball and volleyball. They help serve concessions for home varsity games in the gym. The parent driver volunteer body are just amazing, driving middle school teams locally to away games and supporting the teams in the stands on the sidelines. It's just phenomenal. There is such a great community of parents who are fully supportive and want to engage with us. Steve and Chris both have open doors all the time just to hear back from parents, and that's not always easy, but we are open to tweaking things and making it as robust and as successful as we can.
Yeah. I mean, I remember as a parent when my children were playing in high school, the community of parents on that team and going to the basketball games and sitting in the stands, and it was a bit of a sadness for me when that ended, and I've heard that from other Trinity parents too. It's like this is really a place where community is built, and
I think there are often more tears actually at the end of season, the senior nights before they get on the bus for the last game or match from parents than there is at graduation. There is a real connection and passion there from the parents, which is wonderful.
I'd just like to mention the partnership word too. I know we talk about that a lot in everything we do, but I know for me being a varsity coach here, just to see the partnership, how even now I'm also a parent of an athlete's in the middle school program, and just to know that coach is in partnership with me in raising my son.
Right.
And I know that I can't do it alone. And I think that's really important for me to have that. And I know I have parents on my team who, I know when they get in the car or if they start to express some, maybe just some struggling or whatever it may be, that I know that we're on the same page and that partnership's there. So that's the thing, to speak to your point, Sophie, of how we have the open door and how all our coaches here are in partnership with their parents. So.
And I've been impressed with our coaches, and something I know when they come to work here that it's a partnership, and something I've been impressed with is if I talk to a coach and say, hey, we had this issue come up or this situation we need to talk about, they're always open. They want to come sit down and talk to me about it. They immediately say, well, I'd like to speak to that parent. I'd like to speak with that student athlete. So it's been a great working relationship, as Chris mentioned.
And I think it's amazing the way the coaches, not just skill level or athletic development, really care about the hearts of these children. They'll pray with them. They'll do a service project in the middle school at the end of each season, but they are just caring about their spiritual formation on the court or on the field, which
Yeah.
is wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. I think before we move off of the parents, I want to say, having been a parent, all of us, sometimes I think parents can get in the way of good things that could happen with students on the court or on the field. And that I wonder if you guys could step into that and talk a little bit about how can parents help students struggle through losses or hard times. What's the right way for a parent to sort of coach and help a student that might be struggling on the basketball team? Any thoughts on that?
I think one big thing parents can do is help students, and this is a hard thing to do, so it's easy to say, it's harder to maybe to do and implement, but really, and especially at the varsity level, have students advocate for themselves. So if they're wondering why, hey, I haven't played as much the last few weeks, just encourage them to go talk to their coach. And I know Coach Sparks is willing to do that, and all our coaches are willing to have that conversation and sit down with them. I know some schools have different policies where a coach will say, I'll talk about anything but playing time. And I understand that may be that culture, but our culture is, hey, let's have this conversation, let's talk you through. The end of the conversation may not be that you get more playing time, but hopefully you leave that with a better understanding and really feel like your coach knows you and loves you and cares about you and can give you some tips and pointers to maybe earn that down the road.
And that self-advocacy increases as students get older.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so by the time they get to the varsity, the expectation would be, it's just like in the classroom, that the students are going to be advocating for themselves. And yeah, Chris, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I'm really interested in seeing how the students handle failure. You know, so when they fail, I know it's hard for me too as a parent, a seventh grader, to see his growth through failure, just allow that growth to take place and not try to step in. And I know it's really hard as a parent, it's easier said than done, but I think my recommendation to any parent is just allow your student to work through that failure.
Yeah.
And I think that comes in with advocating for yourself, obviously, and then what is the coping, what is the next steps to try to maybe not have that failure repeat, right?
Yeah.
So,
A number of us, just as an aside, went to hear Alan Jacobs this week talk over at Duke, and he talked about in play the distinction between pain and harm. I thought it was really helpful, and I think part of the parent role and the coach role is we learn through pain. This is part of athletics, right? And but where does that pain go over into harm? And I think that's the judgment that parents have to make. But I think one of the hardest things as a parent is when do I let my child fail, and how do I let them fail? How do I let them learn through that failure in a way that may be painful but not harmful? And we want to partner with families in that dialogue. I think coaches welcome that conversation of sort of where that line is. I want to just reference the expanded mission statement of the school. We've been talking about a number of ideas that are in there. It's a document that's so important to us. It is approved by the board, and it's an explanation of the whole mission of the school. There is a bit of discussion about athletics, particularly under the rubric of unhurried. And in there we talk about a number of the ideas we've been talking about here, and I hope our parents will take a look at that. One of the things that we mention in there is specialization and the tendency of our culture to specialize very early on. I wonder if you all could talk about that just a little bit, and how does Trinity respond to that?
I think certainly at the middle school level, we just have many opportunities for them to participate. We open sports to sixth graders, and we really encourage them to participate in different sports throughout the year and their middle school career. I think we all see that specialization and that tension between parents wanting the best, very best for their student, and just going down one road. But the beauty is if they stick to one or two sports or try a different one, they're actually setting themselves up at the varsity level of distinguishing what is best for them and not burning themselves out. And the joy of mixing friendships and getting to know new people throughout their years too is wonderful to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we have students that specialize early and they're very focused on what they want to do, and that allows them to accomplish a certain level. But for many of our students, they don't know yet what they're, I mean, it's a testing of their gifts, whether it's in athletics or drama or the arts or whatever. And so I think this is one of the great opportunities that Trinity gives students to try those different gifts out.
And I would also too, if, I think the world would tell you, our world would say, you have to do this, you have to follow this certain map, this roadmap to get to maybe that place of playing college athletics where it's so difficult to get to that point. It's really hard, right? And sometimes our culture is hyper-focused on that. But I know all the kids that if I look back, all the kids I coached in college, most of them played other sports. And it really wasn't until their junior year that they really started to focus on one sport. I can think of kids that were skateboarding and surfing to all the kids that were, like you said, maybe the lead role in a play. And I think just having that balance in their life then allowed them to really understand how to be part of a team in different ways and work with others. And so I think my encouragement is to be different and to not just conform to that. And every kid is different too. And I think the burnout thing, like Sophie said, is a real thing. And I would just encourage parents to look at research and go out there and really seek the information that's really helpful.
Yeah. Well, I want to end with just referring to an essay that C.S. Lewis wrote, which I've shared with you all and will put up for the rest of the Trinity family. It's a short essay, and it's about chivalry. And in there, Lewis talks about the medieval ideal of putting two things together in one person that are often, there are two types of people in the world. They are either fierce or meek. And we can all think, right, of people that are fierce but not meek, and people who are meek but not fierce. And he says the Lancelot ideal was one person who was both fierce and meek. And I shared that with you all because I think of athletics when I read that essay. Does that resonate with you?
It's actually something that really excites me about the opportunity we have here to represent God and play sports fiercely and compete fiercely, but also be humble in victory and gracious in defeat. And those are things that are easy to say, but they play out so much in the sports world. They may not play out in the classroom or in your job, but drive as hard as you can to the basket, knock somebody down on the way and pick them back up when you're going back down the court. Slap them on the behind when you're going down the court, say great job, and then take it to them as hard as you can the next time down and go tooth and nail with them every single play. And that's a great thing. And then also knowing that when they come to our gym, we're going to be competing as hard as we can, but they're going to look up and see a Bible verse on the door. So that's an extra onus on us that we're competing well, as hard as we can, coaching as hard as we can, but also knowing we're representing God. And I want people to leave our gym or our court, our field, wherever they are, and say, man, that's a Christian school. They represented God well. Man, that was the best competition we had all year, and have that respect when they leave.
Yeah.
I can tell a quick story of, I remember playing, I'm going to apologize to the Duke fans ahead of time and the NC State fans, but I mentioned this to Dr. Denton a while back when I first started here, we played Justin Jackson's high school team, and we were having a really successful year, and they had 7 players on the team, and we go in and I'm like, man, who's this Justin Jackson kid? So unassuming, right? But as soon as the ball went up, you want to talk about a guy that was fierce and did it in a way that was just incredible, and that was kind of, and we got beat, and it was one of our few losses that year, but it was like, it's just something different about that young man, and you watched it play out then in college, and then you start to learn more about his background and his values, and it was just, that was to me, and then watching the YouTube video, the C.S. Lewis essay, it was incredible to see, boy, that he was meek and fierce, and it was so attractive for me as a Christian, to see that play out on the basketball floor. So, and I try to, tell our guys all the time examples of people like that, and that you can see that you can do both. And we want to show that you can do both.
Yeah.
So,
And it's not a compromise between the two, sort of like let's hit a happy medium, but it's like how do you embody both those things in a full throttled kind of way. And one of my favorite things to do is to see a student who I know from the hallways or classroom who is very quiet and sort of unassuming, and you think, oh, that student maybe is a pushover or something, and then you go watch them on the field or on the court, and they are diving for the ball and they're giving all, everything, and I love that. It's like something comes out there that's really wonderful. So, well, I want to thank you all for all you do for Trinity's athletic program, and thanks for taking this time today to talk about it.
thank you.
Well,
No,
thank
no
you.
reason.
Thank-